And we start here. President Cyril Ramaphosa and the South African delegation are in Dubai for the UN Climate Change Conference, or COP28. Rich countries have committed more than $350 million towards a new fund to help poorer countries ravaged by climate change. Ramaphosa says this pledge is not enough.
We are very pleased that at this COP28, one of the real, what you could call upfront agreements, is to address loss and damage. And that a fund has now been set up, and money is going to be put aside to address the losses and the damage that climate change has wrought on our people's lives, on communities, as represented here in this piece of artwork. We want that fund to be much bigger than what has now been put on the table. $350 million is far too little to address the challenges that climate change has imposed on our communities and areas in KZN, in the Eastern Cape, in Northwest, even in Gauteng. So the effects of climate change, as you can see there, are just spreading more and more. And we who come from countries that have not really contributed much, if at all, to climate change are actually feeling the effects much more strongly than those countries that have contributed immensely to climate change. So this COP, for starters, and people are still going to be here for 2 weeks. Minister Creasy is still going to be here for quite a while as the negotiations and the discussions go on. Minister Pandor to some extent as well, but people from the private sector as well as from NGOs and the departments are going to be here involved with other countries to negotiate good deals that can address our transition to a green economy, green everything. We are now capitalizing on a number of technologies and number of new industries.
Well, Sophie Mokoena, SABC News international editor, is in Dubai and joins us now for an update. Sophie, as you heard there, President Ramaphosa saying that rich countries are not doing enough. Is there enough being done in order to help the other poor countries that are ravaged by climate change? What else happened today?
Well, yes, Alicia, we are still here in Dubai. This is day 3 of the summit. Today, the focus was on statements made by different leaders. One of the important issues, as you pointed out, was the issue of the Middle East. You know that this is a Gulf region, and also it is a Middle East region. And therefore, some leaders did weigh in terms of what's happening in the Middle East between Hamas and Israel. You know that there was a truce that was agreed to by the two parties, but unfortunately this morning the news that last night there were killings, and therefore both sides breaking that agreement, and the fights continued today. We have the death toll in relation to Palestine. Yesterday it was people killed in Israel, and therefore the leaders did weigh in on this matter. I did ask President Ramaphosa about the latest development in the Middle East. Let's take a listen. We are in the Gulf region. We are in the Middle East, and the war is raging 1,000 kilometers away from here, Dubai, and it looks like the truce is not holding because people died today.
Well, it's most unfortunate. I did raise it in my input that in South Africa we are really appalled at the continued deaths that are going on, and we see this as genocide, that there is a collective punishment that is being levied against Palestinians in Gaza. And we say this must stop. There was a truce, and we would have wanted this truce to hold and in fact to be transformed into a ceasefire. where the deaths of people is stopped, and it seemed like it would hold. But now with the renewed fighting, we are most concerned, and that is why we will continue calling for a total ceasefire, and so that negotiations can then commence on finding a more permanent solution to the conflict that continues to rage in that part of the world. Without negotiations, people will continue to die.
You heard the president talking about the Middle East, but tomorrow then the day will be all about looking at what needs to be done to ensure that countries are able to catch up. You know that there were targets and timeframes that were set up by different countries during different meetings of this climate committee of world leaders. But you know that some of the meetings where pledges were made, countries didn't honor those pledges, particularly when you look at the Paris Agreement, where countries agreed, particularly the developed North, that they will make available $100 billion. But to date, little has come on the table, particularly for developing countries to tap in and also to use those funds to address issues of climate change. We know that the view here is that the developing South is not responsible for the greenhouse emissions. And also during the time of colonialization, when these big countries were developing and becoming industrialized countries, the continent, such as the continent of Africa, was not able to tap into its resources to develop itself, and therefore developing nations saying that developed countries must do more. But today also we saw an announcement by the host country in terms of $30 billion. Part of that money is going to be utilized to address issues that are related to fossil fuel. The president also touched on that when he was engaging business at the pavilion, talking about South Africa's focus to launch that policy that will deal with the automobile industry in terms of addressing challenges of the carbon emission. And we know that tomorrow the Minister of Trade and Industry will be in the Eastern Cape to engage stakeholders so that South Africa can come up with a policy. We will bring you more tomorrow. Tomorrow the president again will engage with the media and will try and find out whether he is happy thus far. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much to Sophie Mokoena, the SABC News International Editor in Dubai for us.